Hello, Priestess Mama, and welcome back to the Priestess of Motherhood podcast. My name's Dania Foster, and I am a Bachelor Qualified Naturopath and Energetics Therapist. And today I want to talk to you about the fire Sabbath of Samhain. So you might have seen it written, and I know this can be a bit confusing because it's written Samhain, Hain. So it looks like it's called Samhain, but we actually pronounce it with its Celtic roots, which is Samhain. So Sowwen would be the way that we would spell the way that we say the word sowing, Samhain. So this is the time where it's really in the Northern Hemisphere around the October 31st Halloween portal into the Vale of the undead or the dead. So this is a perfect time that we honor the seasons are changing from the light into the dark. And we can see that from where we are in the Southern Hemisphere now, that the days are getting a bit darker, they're a bit cooler. There's those winds coming in to signal changes on the horizon. So let's talk about how we can honor this season as sacred within our homes. And when we step up into the role of priestess of our motherhood, how can we lead our children and our families and ourselves through these ceremonies, these rituals that connect us with nature, connect us with the environment in which we're in, as well as hold that space for us to connect in with our ancestors, connect in with our shadow selves, and help to clear the way for nourishing the roots is what's to come next. So let's dive in. This is an invitation. This is an invitation for you in your motherhood to step up and reclaim your role as priestess, to claim this season as sacred and your connection with it as sacred. Okay, so let's look at some little questions that I've received and some things that have come to me over the years. So, what parts of me are asking to die so that something new can root deeper? See, Samhain is like the womb space of the year. It's where we go to move through a portal into deep change. And some of that deep change requires that deep darkness and deep rest. So it is that time of year where we feel a bit more reclusive. It is that time of year when we feel like we want to pull back. And within myself, it's sort of like the if we look at it in a menstrual cycle space, it is like that dark moon or that premenstrual phase where we just sometimes have that deep rage or that deep feeling where we want to burn everything to the ground. And that's that urge, that deep, dark feminine within that is telling us to clear out the womb, shed that womb space. Bleed through that and get out everything that is old, that is stagnant, that is not serving, because we are going to be bleeding that through to come. And then we have space to nourish the roots and renew ourselves and come back anew with what we really need to be aligned with and intentional with. So yeah, Samhain is like the womb space of the year, dark. It's really fertile with lots of opportunity for growth if we allow ourselves to clear that and be present with the dark, because Samhain, like Halloween, can have a lot of fear associated. It is a time to acknowledge our fears. It is a time to acknowledge the dark and the shadow and things that feel a bit uncomfortable. So this is something that I refer back to in my mentorships, is getting really comfortable with the dark, because this is something that is, in my opinion, one of the root causes behind a lot of our physical um, diseases or imbalances, is coming back to an emotional, energetic belief system or patterning that we believe we are not worthy of having more, or anything, it comes back to how we believe about ourselves, our beliefs about ourselves, our energy that we hold about ourselves, what we believe we were ready for, all of that. So when we have these questions, what parts of you are you asking to die so that something new can root deeper? So have a think about, what have you outgrown? What patterns are you clinging to that you're actually hiding behind? So this is something that I do. I know that I am somebody that will now go to dissociation in when I'm in nervous system overload. So when my nervous system is dysregulated, if I've got a lot of stress, then I will dissociate. And a lot of that dissociation, if it's not healthy dissociation, can be stuff like doom scrolling, can be things like playing Tetris, things like that until I get to the right levels. All of these things here um, are about a dissociation. So we talk about some in my mentorships, we talk about healthy dissociation patterns, way that we can allow ourselves to give our brain a bit of a break and our nervous system a bit of a reprieve from the everyday stresses, but doing that in a way that is actually going to be rewiring our brain to feel empowered, to feel safe, and to lift ourselves higher in that area. So have a think about how you are clinging to patterns that are perhaps helping you to hide. And it does feel a bit scary to step out of your comfort zone and face those fears. But when we acknowledge them and see where they're showing up in our unconscious faces, that spaces, then like in our dream worlds, in our fears, in our triggers, all of these things will help us to see what are the patterns that we're hiding behind. So have a look and think about what your final harvest could be before we move into the space of the winter, which is sitting with that dark and finding the light. And helping that to grow as well. And the dark is all about nourishing the roots and nourishing the foundations of what makes us the strongest, and building those rhythms and those rituals and those patterns that are going to really nourish the roots and nourish the strength within us so that we can rise up with energy. So what are you being asked to be radically honest with yourself right now? Like if you were to have radical honesty with yourself right now, what is it within you that needs that acknowledgement, needs that attention given back to it? So the priestess doesn't fear the dark. She is able to hold that space with reverence and know that the dark brings answers and clarity. And that is another way of saying that. Sorry about that. We had a little bit of a delay for a matcha delivery. So let's talk about the priestess does not fear the dark. She is walking into the dark with reverence, which means she is not afraid to sit in her fears, to acknowledge them, to cry out if she is feeling pain, if she is feeling hurt, if she's feeling vulnerable. It's about accepting that and creating space to feel that. It's about not getting up and rushing through the day's actions, and it's about creating some space for it. So if you can take a moment to journal it out, take a moment to meditate on what is coming up for you, take a moment to sit with your inner child and ask her what she needs in that moment from you, because I can guarantee you, I did this with myself this morning, a letter to my inner child, and I can guarantee you the stuff that my inner child was asking for was the stuff that I was feeling resentful from others in my life not giving me. And I was like, oh, hang on, my inner child is really needing that. So can I give that to her as her protector? And that's coming more into the work of invoking the inner mother, which we do in the Priestess of Motherhood mentorship as well. It's a different element, but that's how we become the protector within this role of our own inner child and supporting ourselves through that. So how can you honor your rage, your grief, your resentment, your fatigue, without having to come up with solutions or strategies of how to fix it? But how can you just be with it and hold that? Because it really needs your attention and needs you to listen to what it's asking from you that needs to change. So that's looping back up to this being the final harvest time of year, the season of death and celebrating of death and the honoring of death is so important because this is the space where we are acknowledging what needs to be released. So, as a guide of the priestess of motherhood, we hold these thresholds for I hold that for you so that you can hold that for your family, because I know that we've got kids that are going through emotional regulation challenges, and we are stepping into the role of their guide, and they don't need just a coach. They need a mother, and this is why I believe so much in the priestesshood of motherhood, because the mother needs to not just be there to educate and guide and nurture, but she needs to be that spiritual embodiment that the children look to as well. They look to for guidance on that higher being. So one of the things that Samhain, or coming back to any of the seasonal rituals or Sabbaths, reminds us of is that we're not alone. And this is something that I find really comforting as a mother when I need to step into that role of the inner mother and the protector of my own inner child. But it also helps me to guide my children, to let them know that they're never alone, and if they can grow up with that wisdom as well. I think this is something that is really important, that everybody needs to have some higher faith of support around them, whether that's God, goddess, universe, magic, whatever it is for you. We need to have that faith within us that there is a bigger purpose out there for us. And so for me, in my family, we see God and goddess working together as intertwined strains of the masculine and feminine guiding us. So we have a father figure, but we also have a mother figure. And when we combine them together, we can sit with that. So when we are allowing that space for our children to acknowledge God and goddess and leaning into that space of handing over our fears and knowing that we're not sitting in the dark alone, it's really powerful for us to feel that. And you can go and this is why we take some time out in nature. We go sit in the grass, go for a nature walk, go for a bush walk, and feel it all around us. So just pointing it out is a really easy way to help our kids feel connected with that higher power, in knowing that spirit is within us, around us, everywhere. So walking with that is really important. So your children can learn to honor death and grief and change by watching how you acknowledge those things. And this is a beautiful time to acknowledge that portal. We know that this portal of Samhain is connected to the veil thinning and being more connected with our ancestors who have passed over, more connected with our beloved dead. And this is why it's got so much of those connotations from the Northern Hemisphere being related to Halloween. So it's a really easy way to connect our children with that. But it's a beautiful thing for the Southern Hemisphere that this is so close to, in Australia, Anzac Day. And so being Anzac Day yesterday, I have had beautiful conversations with my children about the things that have happened in the past and why we celebrate Anzac Day and the sacrifices that people made. And we've been reading books based on that time period of family members going off to war and how the children dealt with that, their own fears and grief and things like that. So, in a way that is palatable for your children and their age, there are lots of different resources, but being able to acknowledge death and cyclic living is really important part of life, and knowing that it is a part of life and it is something that you can move through with support, and bringing your family along together brings you more connected with them as well. So one of the questions that we have is, how can you weave that reverence into this dark season without um falling into fear? So that could be, this is where I talk, it is reading the book. So one of the really good books that we've just been reading is the Australian Girl series with the kids. The Australian Girl series talks about different girls growing up in different time periods. And so there's convict ones, and as it moves on through that, we've got up to where it's like the time of the war, 1918, and how they're dealing with their their fathers and their brothers going to war, and the community and things around that has brought up lots of things. So how can you talk about that with your family? So someone's not just about honoring the dead, but it's about honoring who we become when we honor the dying process, when we honor the space to transform, to let go, and to step into who we want to be next. So it's all about that shift. And I tell you that when I've been pulling my cards this week, I've been getting the death card constantly, and it's a bit of a sometimes it can be a bit of an ominous omen, but it's really not. It's been kind of giving me hope that things are shifting and there is new to come, and we're letting go of old parts of ourselves. And so that can be a bit painful, because when it comes up, lots of old stories come up, but you have to be able to feel those and cry about them, talk about them with your safe people. I talked about them with my husband and say, these are the stories that are cycling up for me. And um just expressing that, journaling on them, rewriting where you're going now, is saying, this isn't how it's going to be. I'm going to be doing this now. It's going to happen this way from now on. It's really important to, so, and it's not about just honoring the death part, but it's what comes after the death. It's really important to acknowledge that as well. So this is a really interesting thing, because we often do things like our vision boards at the beginning of the year, thinking like, just because it's a new calendar year, it's a really good time to sort of think about what we want and what we're calling in and everything. But this is the actual energetic portal for change. So really, if you haven't done your vision boards yet, or if you've forgotten about them already, mine's just in front of me on my desktop background, and it's again up on the wall behind my computer. But oh, and I've got one on my bedside table. I've put them everywhere because it's so important to me to really anchor into that. But if you haven't done it yet, this is a beautiful time to anchor into that vision board, anchor into your affirmations and your manifestation statements, where you say, this is what is moving into my life. This is how it is going to be. This is how I show up in the world. This is how I mother. This is how I present myself. These are the things that I value and I spend my time and energy and money on. This is what I invest my resources into. This is who I am. So this is a really important portal for that sort of energy. So the mother becomes the priestess when she chooses to hold space instead of suppress. So have a think about, when we're envisioning these manifestations, what does it feel like within your bones, within your body, to be that ritual leader, that intuitive guide for your family, to have that confidence and that connection to spirit, to nature, that you can be present with them to guide them back to that as well. And then the next step from that is have a think, how would your family unit change if you were able to step up into that role of priestess within your family? If you were able to bring them into connection with this seasonal changes of the year and what's to come. So I just want to take this time to really honor this portal and have a think about some of the things. I'll just give you a little recap of some of the things that we've talked about is bringing your family into connection and you stepping up into the role of leadership within that spiritual, intuitive role of connection with spirit and nature in your home. To be able to open your children up to emotional and nerve system regulation using rituals and rhythms connected to nature. Ways that we can do that is journaling, looking at our fears, meditating, or going for a nature walk and seeing what comes up, acknowledging our triggers from across the day and giving ourselves some time to sit with them and think, where did that come from? What stories am I reliving as patterns over and over again in my life that I'm ready to let go of? Being acknowledging of those things is the first step. The next thing you can do is really spend some time with your inner child, acknowledge what their needs are, and acknowledge what they really need to hear and hear from you as their inner mother. You've got an inner child, you've got an inner mother, you stepping into or invoking that role of protector over your inner child and giving that to yourself, what you're craving, yearning for. And if that means you might want to write your inner child a letter, like I did this morning, you might want to take that letter and burn it or bury it or send it off into the universe or give it back to the earth in whatever way you feel drawn to do. This is a fire ceremony. This is a fire ritual, Sabbath. So you might want to have a fire. You might want to have a fire to really connect with the elements, to spend some time outside, to come back to fire is all about transformation. So giving that space time to move through you. Work on what it is that you're making space for. So what are these death of the old you? If you're thinking about this as like a funeral for the old self, letting that go and what are you stepping into? And remembering that you're never alone. So we have different sources that we can lean to throughout these transformations. And I am talking about our God and Goddess energy that we can lean into. And I am also talking about our ancestors. So creating an altar using photographs or mementos from your ancestors, your beloved dead, your lineage of family members or ancestry that is cheering you on for breaking generational curses when you choose to acknowledge shadow aspects and change from that. Let them die, let them go to the earth and compost away. You're not alone. That's the big takeaway. And the reason why we love doing seasonal rituals is it brings us back into connection with spirit. It brings us back to connection with energy and the earth wisdom and our ancestors and lets us know we are here for purpose and we are cultivating so much when we are leading our children to step into this with reverence and sacredness as well. So yeah, you can create an altar, you can write letters, you can sit and meditate with your beloved dead. Call them in, ask them questions. I have a meditation. I will pop that in the show notes where we can go on a journey to meet with our ancestors and ask them advice. But I have lots of love for you, and I am so honored to be here and hold you through this portal and know that there is so much good to come. And this is a really exciting shift in the energy. So may we honor our dead, may we honor the dying and the dying within ourselves and all that is still becoming. May we walk as the mothers and the priestesses, wise enough to let go and brave enough to begin again. It's all for our highest good. It really is. So if you would like to connect with me, I invite you to reach out. You are more than welcome to send me a DM on Instagram or Facebook. Send me an email at dania@daniafoster.com and come and ask me if you'd like to have a chat about working together. I would be absolutely honored to walk this path with you. So come and have a chat and let me know if you've loved this podcast by sharing it, giving it some love on my socials, and let your friends know if you think they'd be interested too. All right, lots of love to you. Take care.